What's up, everybody?
What it do?
Today we got something pretty serious to talk about. Baby, why you got that coat?
Channeling my new inner me.
Oh, you okay, Eskimos. All right,
Yeah.
I can get with that. Yeah. All right. So,
It's a cold world. Guess we gotta bundle up. Hello. Hey.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back. Let's get into it.
All right. So, today we want to talk about something a bit more serious from what we usually talk about. This video was actually going to start around the time that we were going to do the walk for Ahmaud Arbery, but so much has happened since then, and just coming off of this past weekend, which was so chaotic, we gotta do this now. We gotta speak about this.
Yeah, we have, as a community, have experienced so much strife and death in the past month alone. Like, was that even a month apart?
It was like right after the other.
Yeah.
I think maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, from Aubrey to George Floyd. In between that was Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade.
Mm-hmm.
It's Sean Reed. It's been a lot of pain that our community has suffered, and in light of that, we have some poetry that we're going to get into today, and I don't know if it's going to help, but we can just put our pain and our thoughts out onto a page.
Absolutely. We just, again, it gotta be said. It has to be. And for me, being a young black male in this world, really, I can't even say that because it's any minority individuals that could be targeted at this point.
Yeah, but especially our community, the black community, and
Absolutely.
our black men, especially. I can't imagine. I mean, I have brothers. I have 3 brothers. Who it scares me every day to think that anything at any given moment their lives can be taken away from them, and for nothing. So, minorities are targeted, yes, but it is definitely our community is being targeted, irregardless of people saying that it's not about race. It may not be to them, to those specific individuals, but there's a huge community that feels like our race is something that they don't want here.
Absolutely. And growing up, especially in urban city environments, we have a frequency of coming face to face with it a lot more often. And we're absolutely going to touch on that as soon as we finish with our readings, as well as, again, that chaos that just happened over the weekend, being the rioting, and with our people and other people destroying our communities.
We're also going to get into that little thing, Candace Owens.
Oh my God.
First of all, a lot of celebrities and a lot of political figures have chimed in on this situation. But it's certain individuals like Candace Owens who is seeking attention and doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, that I just got the woosah. But we're gonna just save that for later.
It's gonna be a hot conversation.
And we're gonna get into our poetry.
So You want the floor, or
Shall I?
Shall I go, or should you go? Rock, paper, scissors.
I always go first. All right.
You always go first.
All right, hold on. Rock, paper, scissors. All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So you going first?
I'm about to say wait.
All right, I'm going first. Okay. Okay. So this poem I started probably a while ago, like I always do, and then I finished it recently. But this is called "They Don't See Us." Like the here it go. It's like, no, I'm joking. Okay. So I woke up in a blank space, confused by the country's disgrace, infused with rage while dying in place. I'm convinced the world we live in is full of amiss. Such a beautiful place, corrupted with hate and misguided generations determined to lead the way. Where do we go from here if there is no faith? How can we turn it around if they can't understand the pain? Understand the pain of our brothers. We've came so far from shackles and chains, yet we still live in fear of hate. Black, white, yellow, blue. When will they recognize the truth? How can we raise up our youth to a world operating without a clue? Follow the Bible, follow the Koran, follow Buddha or the Nation of Islam. If we continue to celebrate hate, we are all just lost. Until we fight together, we will forever lose the war. It is bigger than what we are taught. It is bigger than what we die for. It is bigger than a world full of Benzes. It is bigger than a girl so full of ass shots she can't recognize the beauty in her innocence. If money equals fame and power equals pain, where is the brain to determine the evolution of a dying race? It's a shame. I can't fathom the pain of losing a child to the right to bear arms state. I can't fathom the pain of witnessing my brother being shot down because he took a jog on a nice day. I can't fathom the pain of being excluded and abused because the color of my skin is that of a darker shade. They will never understand our pain, following a system that is obstructed, while our children are being abducted, slaughtered right before our eyes. When will they see our demise? Not playing the victim, but when do we stop becoming victimized? They don't see us. Whew.
That touches on a really, really scary point, and it's personal to each and every one of us, people of color. And I mean, it can be touching to everyone. And it's crazy that day after day that's becoming so much more relevant, and it's honestly a shame. Mm-hmm. It's a shame that we have to actually write and speak on things like this, because as a society that moves so far ahead, as a society of people with religion, people who are intelligent, people with quote unquote leadership, we shouldn't face these issues.
Right. We shouldn't have to. And when I wrote that, I just was thinking about everything that we've been going through as a community, from years and years of pain and hurt, and to still be going through these situations now in 2020 is blasphemy. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. We've had enough.
Generationally, it's been inherited from our great grandparents all the way on through. The cycle has to stop.
Yep.
It has to end.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna get into yours.
Okay, so mine is titled, Can You Imagine? Imagine living in a city where you're assumed to be a threat just because you appear different. We live in that place. Imagine never bearing the benefit of the doubt because of your complexion. We live with that face. Imagine losing a brother, sister, mother, uncle, aunt, or cousin because at the wrong time, they were in the wrong state. We live with that pain. Imagine not feeling protected by the law, knowing that once the judge sees you, all they can do is judge you, thinking you can't be rehabilitated, so they must prosecute. We live with that case. Imagine skating on thin ice because those in power who haven't lived like you, therefore can't sympathize with you, and you're unsure if they live with that hate. Imagine being confident, courageous, unshook, intelligent, humble, artistic, charismatic, innovative, athletic, but widely misunderstood, even with all of those traits. Imagine how Samuel, Brendan, Natasha, Romaine, Mike, Freddie, Sandra, Michael, Philando, Stefan, Eric, Trayvon, Emmett, Tamir, Alton, Walter, Ahmad, George, Micaiah, and every other name I can speak feels like another defeat. For them and those like them, we pray. Imagine living a beautiful life, but living in such an unbeautiful way. Can you imagine? I do want to point one thing out. I know a lot of the times in these conversations, it tends to always be a black on white, white on color, almost a race war environment. I put the name of Micaiah Wilson in there last to show that if you're going to speak on Black Lives Matter, I always felt like you do have to speak on Black lives taken by Black lives as well. And to those here in the DMV area, we all know that Micaiah Wilson was the young girl it was an outrage last summer when she was killed in her home because of a senseless drive-by shooting, and she was struck while going to the ice cream truck.
There's actually another one recently. I can't remember. I gotta Google that, but I can't remember the name. But there was actually another one recently in DC. I mean, yeah. If we're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. It's true.
And it's sickening the fact that,
but
even from writing this to now, like the names just keep stacking, and
names keep stacking.
I can't write all of them, and my heart goes out and my prayers go out to all of you. It's so many of you to name, and so many of you deserve your respects for what you've gone through.
I think honestly, our race has been taught to
we bear it.
We've been dealing with a lot of anger for years. They're angry. We're angry. You know, you go into different hoods in DC or wherever else, like people are angry. You know what I'm saying? It's not a justification for why that young girl was murdered at all, but I think just in general, like it's just so much built up animosity in us that it's.
That's true. We were always taught by, our parents, grandparents, you grit and bear it, you keep it moving, you keep it trucking. They try to knock you down, you get back up.
You get back up.
And that's just...
You don't give up. Don't ever give up that fight,
That builds up this inner animosity. It builds up this fighter within each and every one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, getting into some of the topics we said that we were going to discuss.
First, because I know this is where we started, we want to say prayers out to Ahmaud Arbery, because again, during that time is when we really originally were going to go ahead and touch on the subject, but again, so much happened after that. In that case, where of course the young man was jogging it didn't even matter if it's his neighborhood or not. He was simply jogging,
That's not
exercising.
A crime. It's not a crime to go jogging in any neighborhood unless it's a gated community. It's not a crime for me to go to Potomac, Maryland, and go jogging in one of their communities with big ass houses. That's not a crime.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, that hit me. That right there, because we go jogging on a regular basis,
every day, and those people they hunted him down. He was hunted and executed in the middle of the street.
And the more evidence that comes out about that case just shows that they specifically were targeting that young man. Like they specifically target a lot of us just because.
Mm-hmm. It was an entire plan. Like for one, there was the alleged police. Well, not the alleged. The police call about him breaking into a vacant home. That was debugged by the owner of the home, who said no, that wasn't a problem. And again, videos came out of multiple people going into that home without any incident, without any problem. And then it also came out about there was and I never really took the time to research and see if it was true, but there was a neighborhood Facebook group where they would speak on issues such as if people of color came into that neighborhood, what they would do to them. And of course, those individuals were part of that group as well, the individuals that hunted him down on that day.
Yep. It's a lot of people like to say that it's not a race war, but there's so much that keeps continuing to unveil to show that this is totally a race war. It's totally not saying that everybody feels this way, because I know a lot of Caucasian people and a lot of people from other races that they don't see color like that, right? But there is a huge majority of population of white males and women or whatever, but a lot of white males that are
still fighting that. They still keeping it going.
Fighting like we're in the 1800s, like we haven't came so far. We came along and we've grown. It's just crazy the amount of growth that the Black community has gotten to, just for them to knock us back down or try to, but they won't. They won't.
Absolutely, and it's upsetting the fact that there are so many people who are still trying to perpetuate this war, still seated in positions of power. Mind you, it wasn't but so long ago where even the government's outlook was to put down or hold back the Negro individual. We still weren't looked at as equal citizens, equal human beings. A lot of those people, their ideas, their policies are still in place to this day. Their mentees are now holding those positions of power, and they still, it's nowhere near outlandish to say they're still upholding that cause. That's still their fight. It's just the fact that it's just clandestine now. We just don't see it. It's just not outspoken, but it's absolutely still there.
Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, how I came across the girl Candace Owens page, who is a super Republican conservative, talking a bunch of nonsense. I don't know if it was on Twitter, because I went to her Instagram page and it wasn't there, so it must have been from Twitter. Just saying all types of negative, nasty things that she could think of to say about George Floyd, and trying to slander his name and put him in such a bad light during a time when the whole world is in uproar about how that police officer handled his murder. How dare you?
Absolutely. That was
how dare
disgusting. You? It was nothing but a slander campaign just to try to destroy that man's name, which is what the media is doing anyway. Anytime something happens to a person of color, there's always that campaign to denounce this individual as a human being or a citizen deserving of respect, where that has no bearing in what happened to that man and why he lost his life.
Don't tell me about his arrest in 2002 and 2005, how he took a hiatus and went away for 5 years and then came back, and girl.
Regardless, the fact that he was treated that way, and the fact that he's not the only person of color that was treated that way, and it's still ongoing. He is another statistic or another check mark on a massive list, and that cannot continue.
Yeah.
She's completely irrelevant in everything that she said.
Everything that she says, and people that think like her. I think the biggest thing that makes me upset is the fact that there are probably many individuals that think like that. People that probably smile in my face on a regular basis that think like that. And that is the thought of that is oh, it stresses me out so much.
It does.
Like
it's
I just can't understand how people, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just can't understand how people can look at someone else's pain and then say, oh, well, maybe they shouldn't have been doing this, or maybe they shouldn't have been doing that, or that, well, I mean, I'm just like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Excuse my French, but shut up. Like, what are you talking about? This man died at the, I don't care what she say he was high on or whatever the case may be. Like, this man died with someone strangling him with their freaking knee, probably breaking bones, whatever. Like, just the pleasure in that officer's face as he had his knee in George Floyd's neck. I cannot, the pain that his family is probably going through right now, the pain that I had watching that video, come on now, like, that's ridiculous. What you did,
nothing, no one deserves that treatment. That was a cold-blooded killing in the middle of the street by an officer who had the protection of the badge at the time.
It was a cold-blooded lynching in broad daylight with probably
children, everyone watching. It was
Lord knows how many people watching. You know,
it is very, very upsetting to see other people with a platform, quote unquote, let alone be so unattached and so far removed from the issues of people like them.
Just to see people on a platform not have any type of sympathy for someone else's pain just because they have not experienced it or don't know anyone that has experienced it, is sad. And then to be Black and to not have that sympathy, or a minority period, and to not feel that pain is heartbreaking.
At any time, it could be any one of us. We in that eye all look the same. It could be you, it could be me, it could be any one of us at that point.
What do you think is the problem with law enforcement? Do you feel like they don't have the proper training? Do you feel like they're trained to kill, or like, what do you feel like? Or do you feel like, you know?
I think that's very broad in debugging that, because you have, I think a lot of people's personal upbringings have a lot to do with why the situation with law enforcement is the way it is, because not only, like we just discussed, someone like Candace who doesn't have a sympathy or association with people of color, you have people who are law enforcement agents or work for an agency who also don't have that sympathy as well. So when they are, say, someone policing an area largely minority ran, it's like they operate in a state of, it could be fear, or a state of, they're looking to clean up this area, they want to be super cop, and they handle things without truly understanding who these people are or what people are truly capable of. It's to the point where it's like they can't even read the body language of someone that is of a minority or just doesn't look like them, and we get incidents like this that happen.
I agree with you. Just going back to you saying that statement is such a, it's so broad, because you can't just pinpoint it on, because they're not trained properly, or no, like, these individuals come into come into law enforcement with already hate on their heart, if they feel that way, and already with mental issues or whatever the case may be, or ready to kill.
Absolutely.
That's why some people go into the military, because they like things like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just,
and you know what, we respect and we love the officers that are there to do the job and do the job well. Let's say that first and foremost.
Absolutely. There is an officer that I follow on Instagram that I absolutely adore. Officer with Tommy Norman. He is phenomenal.
Tony.
Tony. That's what Lois calls him. But Tommy Norman from Little Rock, Arkansas. He has an Instagram with like millions of followers, and he posts all the time about his day to day, going to just helping the black. Not that it matters that it's the black community, because he also has other races that he goes and visits and things like that. But I'm assuming that the area of Little Rock that he works in is probably majority black, and he's there treating his community like they're his family, and that is so refreshing to see from a man in blue.
It's clear that he loves his community, and that's how all officers really should operate. We are not all suspects by default. We are people and human beings first, and I don't know if it's a thing of working this. The individual that murdered George Floyd was a veteran of, I think, about 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if being on the force that long just made him hard, sick. Or if he can only operate within a mind to see everyone as, a possible, again, criminal. But
that is sick, to be on the force for 20 years and to not know how to to restrain yourself from doing that to someone.
There's a detachment somewhere.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah, something's off.
To go forward from, now that we're speaking on George Floyd, let's speak about the outrage and the impact that has had in the days following the event. Oh my gosh,
with the riots and everything. Let's start with the peaceful protests. The peaceful protests around the world have been amazing.
And it's beautiful to see so many different countries. I think we saw earlier the Netherlands was all
Paris.
staying in protest for this cause.
Yeah.
They were wearing I Can't Breathe t-shirts and George Floyd t-shirts, and it
was a lot of countries that came together.
It is
to march for George, to do a peaceful protest for George. Now the riots,
the looting, the rioting,
and the riots. I'm not gonna lie, like the riots, I can get with. You know what I mean? You fighting for something. You're tired of not being heard. You're tired of being. It's almost like being picked on by a bully, and then when you finally fight back, the bully gets nervous and scared. You know what I'm saying? The looting is a whole nother story. I mean, I don't condone theft at all, but the
looting,
the looting of people's personal property is ridiculous.
Destroying people's cars.
Yeah, because I have a friend whose cousin actually, she said her cousin's car got destroyed. Her cousin has 4 kids. Now she has to figure out, granted it's a pandemic, but you still need your car to go to the grocery store and whatever else. So
they're out here destroying people's places of work, people's business
that they built brick by brick
to communities.
Yeah. But the riots, honestly, I feel like they're doing something. If anything, they're making some noise that needs to be made.
Eventually, people who are oppressed are going to stand up, and they're going to rise. And for those people coming from that situation, fighting for that cause, I feel that is a justified cause, because you can't keep beating someone down and expect them not to eventually get back up and fight.
Yeah.
Now, don't condone anyone that's there simply to be destructive, simply to just join in on debauchery.
Right. Absolutely. If you're going to be there, fight for a cause. Like I've even seen people, there was hundreds of people that, I can't remember what area this was in, but they laid down for 8 minutes on the ground, screaming or chanting, "I can't breathe." And that right there, that shows something. I thought that was beautiful.
And even shout out to the police officers around the nation that actually stood in the protest as well.
Absolutely.
We saw a lot of
I've seen some taking a kneel
Mm-hmm. The soldiers that took the kneel, and
were they the ones that Keke Palmer was talking?
Yeah, those
are soldiers that took a kneel. You know, the fact that there are military enforcement out there for protesters. I mean, granted, you don't know who has a weapon or not, but there hasn't been any deaths or killings from them. They've been out there trying to make people hear what they have to make people hear what we have to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Shout out to the military, to our servicemen and women as well. We absolutely respect and love you.
Well, it's not about that. I mean, yes, shout out to y'all, love y'all dearly, but I'm not saying that to say anything against you. I'm saying that it's unnecessary for you all to be out there.
You people put your lives on the line for us every single day. You guys fight for our country, and I mean, honestly, you shouldn't be brought into this, but respect to you as well.
Yeah, so.
Also, we have the cases that came up after the chaos and the backlash that we're seeing from celebrities, other people like Candace Owens. A few of the names of, for example, someone that was murdered after that was the Sean Reed case that ended up in a car chase from what we saw. And he was seen running away from his vehicle, and all of a sudden there are gunshots and he collapses to the ground.
Yeah.
Reports came out that there was an exchange of fire, but the evidence seen in the Facebook Live video showed that there was no such thing at all.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no exchange of gunfire. And the officers had no idea he was recording he was recording everything that was going down. Everything that transpired was on his live.
Even as they were standing over his body, the things that they were saying.
Oh yeah, laughing like, oh, I guess this is going to be a closed casket.
Which is disgraceful. It's disgusting.
How can an individual look at a dead body with holes in it, many holes in it, a being that was just alive, and say, I guess this is going to be a closed casket funeral?
Again, I think that still goes back to that dehumanizing effect of I don't know if that's a side effect of law enforcement or not, but it's how could you dehumanize another person, whether or not they committed a crime? That's still a life.
Absolutely. It's almost like it's a matter of control, power, hate. It's so many different things that go into this that just is inhumane. Like, you don't walk around the world. I don't walk around this world feeling like I have control over everybody, or I have power over everyone, or I feel like I can do what I please, whether I'm an officer or a hairstylist or I work for the government, whatever. It's just inhumane to go around thinking that you can just treat people like crap.
Absolutely.
In a deadly manner.
And that shows as well how all too often we're put in situations that we want to have no control over, and then framed and blamed for things that absolutely did not take place. If it wasn't for body cameras, which I don't know where this flux of body cameras not being turned on, or at one point all we saw was body cameras. Now it's like, oh, they weren't registered. Oh, they weren't on. Oh, it didn't get the image.
Like the situation of the man who was serving or protesters. I can't remember what area of the world it was in, but he was giving food to protesters that were out. They're out there all day. They're hungry. They need different things. And the man was killed by a police officer. And apparently all of the officers on the scene had their body cameras off, which led to the police chief of that district being fired. He was fired.
And thank God for, again, I can't say it enough, thank God for cell phones and recording
social
devices.
Social media platforms.
These stories would have never gotten out. We would never see the other side of events if it wasn't for unfortunately, if it wasn't for him showing his death, unknowingly showing his death on Facebook Live, we would never have seen his side. And think of all the people whose side we still don't know. Think of people who have gone to jail from drugs, weapons, stories just being planted on them that can't even defend their case because there's no video evidence to support them.
Right. Like Will Smith said, and I quote, racism is not getting worse, it's getting filmed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is being filmed at this point, and it's been going on for so many years. I mean, the main thing that we knew about back in the day was Rodney King, you know, and that's because it got so much public attention. Now, these senseless acts and senseless murders are getting public attention because we're right there like this, you know. Granted, a lot of people are upset. They're like, put your phone down and help. But at the same time, we still need those recordings so that we can know what's going on.
And honestly, I want people to understand that this is not a myth. It's not a legend. I know people from all walks of life, from many different races, that all have had either themselves or know a close friend or a family member that have had incidents where, you know, they were backed into the corner by the law, or they were profiled, or there was something where they either weren't in the wrong at all, but it could have been one of these situations that would have ended up on the news with them dying because of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that pretty much everyone I know as a minority could speak on, because we all have lived through it. We all have seen it.
We all have either been through situations like that, or have family members or close or friends of friends that have been through stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
multiple times. I mean, I've lived in the city all my life, and I mean, it's at the point where, I mean, you never really can get desensitized to it, but we know that it happens. It happens. You have to move carefully. You have to move in a way where you try to avoid getting into these situations.
Yeah.
But
and even me, like, not living in the city, I'm from Montgomery County. Everybody knows Moco police they are something else. But I've definitely experienced it and seen it for a lot of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate, you know. It's unfortunate that the difference in the way that officers handle a Caucasian individual to how they handle someone of a different race. You know, they could be doing the complete same thing and get treated in a much better manner than
what we would see,
than what they would treat us with. And that's sad, and that's unfortunate, and people can say that that's not the case, but it's been happening for too long.
That's not the case for them. It is the case for us. It's been
happening for too long. It's upsetting and it's sad. You know, I had someone look at me during Trayvon Martin's case, look at me and say, well, how about this? Maybe he shouldn't have been in that neighborhood.
So are you saying I can't just walk down the street? He was walking through a neighborhood to his neighborhood. He had to cross.
Could have flipped her out her fucking chair. But you know what? I let her know I can't have this conversation with you. And I also, you know, it's like what else was he supposed to? What was he supposed to be doing? He's a child. You know, headed home.
Well, we're considered a threat from the age of 12. We don't get the ability to be labeled as just children. We're a threat from the time we go through puberty and on.
It's ridiculous. The system has been designed to fail us for so long. I mean, you know, from incarcerated black men. A lot of black men have been incarcerated for crimes that they didn't even commit. Central Park 5 is a prime example, you know, and that's
many of them.
There's many cases like that.
And I wonder why those stories don't get as much media attention as the stories that are on the opposite side? Why doesn't the law enforcement globally own up to their mistakes? It's almost like there's a uniform denial of doing something wrong. I've never heard. Well, I'm not going to say I've never heard, but you rarely hear an agency or department speak out and say we were wrong on this one.
Right.
But we don't see that. We don't see that on CNN or on the world stage. That we were wrong. We did this. We made a mistake. You might hear a commissioner give a statement when they apologize for releasing someone that was a high profile case. But
I tell you what, if it was to be on some outlet, it would be on CNN before anything else. Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to touch on, about a week ago or so, we were watching, I think it was on Instagram, there was a young athlete, can't remember his name, but he made a very, very valid point about what it's like being black and what people with a certain privilege don't have to go through. And it really touched me because I started thinking about, do I live my life that way? He was saying that, certain people don't have to worry about how they are perceived. They don't have to worry about the clothes that they wear, or is this going to make me look threatening, or, am I going to be shot down today because I have a hoodie on or anything like that. And I started thinking about the way that I dress and how I feel that the way that I dress is always pretty clean cut, more on a business side or super neutral to the point where I'm not a threatening looking individual. I mean, I'm not a small man by any means, so I'm almost like a prime candidate for someone that would be considered, a shoot first, talk
and
later.
Black, and they looking at you like,
And then it's like, where have I gone in my life where I'm a grown man and I have to sit here and think about what I do, what I wear before I step out of this house to prevent myself from being in trouble? Where was this mentality learned? Why was it pressed upon me, and why is it still here?
Right. I agree. And I think it just probably comes from our parents and how they were raised, and how their parents raised them. A lot of the things I think that we have been taught, not a lot of them, but some things we might have to reevaluate, So at the end of the day, and it's not about being free, or I want to be, cause some of these kids is too free.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, I can't live by anybody's rules. You know what I mean? Granted, of course, have a moral standpoint, but I can't live to please someone else. I have to live to please myself and my God, and whatever you believe in, that's first.
It's like we're living to not succumb to, but to prevent other people from being fearful of us. And that's
absolutely.
Can you even sit there and imagine what that would feel like if you had to be that way yourself, if you had to live to step on eggshells around other people that might
absolutely
think you may hurt?
And I think all of us have to do that at some point. It's like me even being a hairstylist and working in a predominantly white area, which is fine. I love my clients, but I almost even have to think about how I wear my hair sometimes. If I have braids, I have many questions coming at me. Or if I have, or if I put a weave in, oh, is that your hair? Or someone telling me, oh, you look better with your without the braids. It's like, it's none of your business.
Same thing.
What looks best on me. It's what I choose to feel like wearing during this time, during this week, on this day. I might change it tomorrow. Don't worry about what I'm doing.
You don't even get to be comfortable. It's the same way. I work for the federal government, and I could tell some days, it could be Friday, and I might feel like being just a little casual, being comfortable. It could be a really hot day, still remaining within the etiquette, but there's certain things that I wear at times, and you see people around the office giving you that look like, why are you wearing that, or how are you here? Like, I mean, again, that's me being comfortable. That's me, but you could tell that there's a different perception of me based on what I'm wearing, how I'm looking.
Absolutely. With that being said, I think we're going to go ahead and close this out. We don't want to talk your heads off. But I think we touched on some really good topics,
I love being able to get heart to heart with everyone like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to express our thoughts, and we want you all to express yours. Comment below what you feel. If you got things to say, we'll comment back.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, y'all stay safe and be well.
Take care of each other.
Take care of each other. Check on each other. Love each other. Life is too short. And, it's too precious. We only get one.
Only one. So peace, love, health, and wealth.
Peace, love, health, and wealth. And see you later.